Hey everyone, this is Marsh from Consequence, Red Lead slash GM. Usually I get asked a lot of questions from other guilds or players, regarding our strats or logs, anything like that. And, last year I just decided to make a video for SLG and Denathrius, and, I'm going to just do it now for Painsmith on, on the help guilds out. Now, these aren't meant to be your standard guides. This is everything from like a raid lead perspective, how to set up the raid, how to do calls, what to look out for, etc. So regarding Painsmith, one thing I'll note is the fights are completely different now than when we did it. So when I show you the VOD, it's I'm going to advise some things that is probably true, but just note that what you're seeing is outdated content, and to keep that in mind. So the first thing is comp setup. Now, I will start by saying that the higher you go in rank, the more important comp is. The lower you go in the rank, the less important comp is. Now, for this fight, the number one thing you want to do, there's about two or three things you need to look out for. One, you want your most mechanically sound players in. The spiked deaths is going to be your number one problem in Intermission and in P2 and P3. Now, you have weak mechanical players in, they will die consistently to these spike deaths. Now, the spike deaths will cause you to waste many, many pulls because it's many, many B-reses on these targets. Now, understandably, some people are better at some mechanics than others. Now, you can have a player who, in the past was really, really solid at mechanics, and then they get to this fight, and they suck. Now, the way around that is there's honestly no way around that. Sorry, my headset's bothering me, but you just need to make a judgment call, and you need to make any swaps if someone's struggling for someone who you think that might not struggle mid-prog. And I know it's going to piss people off, but if you're doing Mythic, you need to understand that that's a possibility. Now, what classes are quote-unquote good for this fight? Anyone who can kill the ads is good, which is why you see your Windwalker and your Red Paladin. Now, DK, when we did it, was not as good, but they're fine now. Warriors, Hunters are fine, and they will get better with gear. Warlocks are good. They can get these spike balls, which is also really important. Most classes are pretty solid. I'd say, like, the weakest class in this fight is a mage. Fire mage is decent, but they're probably weak. Shadow Priest is also a little weak, but we use one for a certain reason that doesn't really apply anymore. But, you don't have to look at you want to take the player over the class in most situations of this fight. Other classes that I guess are good are classes who can kill spike balls, and I brought this up. Rogues, DHs, Warlocks, they, Hunters, MO Hunters, they're all front loaded. They will destroy spike balls. And that's really important because that's going to smooth out your P2 and your P3 prog a lot and making you take way less time to kill the boss. The other thing to note is Triple Paladin is really strong. Bop in the last phase is insanely valuable. Without 3 bops, you basically need 1 blink tank. Without, 2 bops, so if you only have 1 bop, you'll have to take, 2 blink tanks. And there are other ways around it that I'm not like entirely sure, like the theory, like eventually like gear will let you do other things, but the goal of this is like I'm trying to get you to kill the boss as fast as possible, and if you're a Mythic guild and you can't provide 2 paladins at least, you might want to get another paladin. And sorry, but that's just how Mythic is. We geared up a Ret Paladin in like 5 days to do this boss, because we knew that having 3 bops would reduce the amount of pulls we have. So, to go through the VOD, I'm at the end because I just watched it to remind myself. We'll start with setup. So, DBM and Bigwigs will mark the chain targets with these 3 markers. Now, one thing to note is you get the marker on your head. You don't always have to go to that marker. Your range will eventually learn that, just get to a marker and make it easier for others. And you'll see it a few times in the video. The other 4 markers are for in the box calls. Now, in the box means, green has a box. It's this corner. X has a box. It's this corner, this corner, this corner. And it just helps you with the positioning of like how you want to conduct and shot call the fight from, you know, the best way possible. Other setups in this fight is you have a gateway, a warlock. Not required anymore. Borderline required, basically required when we did it, but you know, if you have a warlock, you definitely want to implement this in your strategy, and you want to set down a gateway, and you want to have everyone focus the gateway. Now, let's see if we actually focus it pre-pull, because I always say focus the gateway before intermission. Doesn't look like it does. So usually, you know, you want to focus the gateway pre-pull. Now, the way you need to think about this fight, you know, from a comp standpoint, is in the past it was 4 heal, and the reason it was 4 heal is because the damage check was kind of tight. Spike balls were tight. Boss damage in P3 was semi-tight. And Blizzard changed the fight. And the reason they changed the fight is because obviously it was just too hard for the majority of guilds. And the way they did that was they nerfed boss health, spike ball health, and something else. But those are like kind of the 2 big things. And, you know, when we did it, or they added a gap in the intermission, which is huge. Like, yeah, you'll see what we had to do as an alliance to get through. So when we did it, 4 heal was basically required. Now, with the boss nerf and the spike ball health nerf, you can take 5 healers, not have to wait for CDs, blanket heal people with chains, and it makes the whole fight easier. I mean, that's my theory, and I think when skills realize they just 5 heal it, like, we'll probably walk in and 5 heal on farm, because it doesn't matter. Like, 4 heal just, like, is fine, but, like, why wouldn't you take a 5th healer so you don't have to wait for cooldowns? Like, that, you know, come on. Now, you know, what's going to happen here is that this people get spikes, and they're going to disengage, and I'll go in the P1. This is easy. This is heroic. Now, the difference between Mythic and heroic is that the chain targets, they have lines that come out of them as well, just like the tanks do in heroic. So when you have them on those 3 lines, you know, the call is get in the box. Look at green. We're all in the box because we know the spike targets are going to shoot out lines. So we're all safe. And first 10 pulls, 5 to 10 pulls of this fight, you want to have your DPS engraved in their mind that they need to hit the spike ball as hard as possible. Because in P2 and P3, it's like, especially P2, it's critically important that this dies very, very quickly. And you have to build good habits in P1. If you're just a guild that's just like, oh, this is P1, it's easy, which is true, it is an easy phase, then you're going to do it wrong. So anyway, we're nuking spike ball. And the call here is get through. Now, main group go through, main group through. Chain's going to line up. Or if you have a blink like this warlock ports, so I guess they're coordinating like who's going to port first, which is probably what they did. Now, again, now you don't have spikes, so you don't have to be in the box because there's no one at these chains. We're just chilling. And traps we always send to the corner. And kind of the rule was take them in the box, but on the edge. Yeah, in the box, on the edge. Done. We have our off tank. Always hitting him. Some guilds have DPS at them. In theory, it makes more sense for the tank to do it, but you know, as a raid lead, if you have like weaker tanks or like your tanks are just being like overwhelmed in P3, if they're like you don't have multiple bops, it might be better to just have like a hunter do it. But again, like your guild, the only issue with having a DPS do it is like, let's say, you know, someone out here was assigned to do it and they got a chain, then you have to call another backup to do it, but the tank can always do it. Anyway, that's a decision that, you know, the guild can make. Again, we're in the box. Boom. Spike ball. Instantly. Swap. Nuke. Go. You know, he rapid fires it. You know, he aim shots it. You know, he's going to probably kill shot it here. Yeah, he didn't get it off, but he was trying to get the spell Q in. And, you know, they're going to line up. Anyone with a blink can go through for free. And that's it. Now, as we watch the rest of P1 here, you know, back when we did it, we were waiting for healing cooldowns, as well as, like, we wanted to milk the boss's HP, because in P2, until you learn it, like, the P2 DPS check is actually kind of tight, and then it all of a sudden becomes free once you understand, like, how P2 works. So now what I think you can do is you can just like fully just send it on the boss and make sure you just don't push with like traps or anything like that, or balls. You don't want to push with balls. So what I probably think is going to happen is you want to beat this ball set, but you need to make a judgment call like what you want to do. But we're waiting for the tank cast because we want to milk the boss HP. Now again, this is not something that's required, but you're going to see it here. And the tank cast goes, he's going to finish the cast, we're milking the boss HP. If you do get to this far of the fight, the enrage is this. We always say get away from the edge so no one instantly dies. We push, and we go. Now I'm calling focus the gateway here just in case someone forgot. He focused the gateway. And we want to stand off the gateway and bake these first things. And we're going to group up. So, So, in a lower rank guild, as I said, earlier in the video, my goal for these is from a raid league perspective, but not like at that world 20 level, top 20, like, guilds like from, world 100 and down might be able to like take some tips that I say and implement in their game. But, from like a raid league perspective, this fight's really much easier with movement speed things. And when, I gave out like probably like a blanket draft of like, hey, can we use these movement speeds like this? But it's really up to the shamans and the druids to figure out what's best. And what they did is they made an order. So we start with the wind rush, and then there's probably a roar, and then like another wind rush or something. But then some roars. Now, this pattern is the same every single time. And what you'll see here is you'll see us try the mostly group. So we mostly group in middle. We mostly group, and we move with movement speed. We're going to touch the wind rush again to pick up the movement speed. Very important. If you're fast, see how they're shooting the gap? This is the safer path. You don't want to really try to force things that are coming at you. You want to go away. Even if these spikes are like here, you can just wait a second and then shoot the gap. Wait, go. They move backwards instead of forwards because it's safer. This is a hard set. Just be patient. Good. Go. Okay. I'll talk about this a little. This doesn't exist anymore, I believe. I haven't done it live. I saw the notes. He's a Kyrian hunter, so he has to turtle through or disengage around, which is kind of a pain. But, just like kind of talked about this, like how we had to set it up. So maybe in the future you can kind of like think about, if something like this ever occurs again, how you do it. Everyone in the raid has a blink, except for Resto Shaman, or immunity, except Resto Shaman. And yes, that's it. So what we do is, our disc priest would void elf through, which is very difficult, and our shadow priest would night fade blink through, and then grip our resto shaman. So you'll see here, one of these is him, and then he'll grip our resto shaman through. And we'll just keep watching the intermission here. Again, movement speed. And here it's bait and gate. So always the call is we want to bait away from the gateway and then use the macro to click. Bait. Gate. This is why gateways are very good. Stack. Move out of ads. Go. Now, early prog, you want to lust this every single time because you'll probably have multiple people dead and you want to focus ads and pot and stuff. Just so you see P2. But, here we're not going to do that. Another thing is I want to talk about how I called intermission, and it's actually way easier than it looks. Like, at first glance you might need to just try to react, but it's actually like mostly scripted. So I'll kind of walk through how I learned how to do this. This is not my POV, by the way. It's another hunter. So again, the first one's always going to spawn one of 3 mid spots. Mid left, mid mid, mid right. Doesn't matter. You can just say mid left. It really doesn't matter. Now here, this is the one of 2 reads you have to make the whole phase. Okay. So here, it's either going to spawn here or here. The way I did it is I always look left, and if I didn't see it left, I'd say go right. Every single time. So here I saw it left, I say left. Now once you make this call, now every single time it's going to be right. So I'm not even looking. I just say right. And again, now since we're on the right, I know it's going to be left, left. I know it's going to be right, so I'm going to say right. Oh, but, well, again, this is the immune set, so I'm under the assumption that in the nerf it's going to be over here somewhere, but I haven't seen it yet. But, you know, here I would say immunes or blanks or whatever. And then it's always going to be mid. And then this is the second read you have to make the whole phase. So, again, I'm going to look left. If I don't see it left, I know it's right. I call right. I'm going to call left. Oh, sorry. It's been a while since I've done this fight. This is bait and gate. Bait. Gate. Through. Stack. Go. Alright. P2 is where most guilds will struggle mightily. Well, Intermission's probably number one. But this is, they're going to introduce spikes. So, the positioning for the chains, we never change the whole fight. The tank's going to go out, and they have to position like away from the spike ball. You have to look at a tank POV. I don't talk about the tank stuff that much. My knowledge for them is limited. I definitely know what they're doing, but, you know, from a theory perspective, you can just go into like logs and figure out, like, copy what they do. But, you know, they're going to want to, you know, be away from the spike balls a tiny bit. Very important. You see the melee here, the range here, because the melee, again, this is where it comes down to killing spike balls, and that is where you're going to need to absolutely slam. Now, the melee are going to instantly go before these go off, and they're going to hit the spike ball as hard as fucking possible. And the range can just stand here and hit the spike ball. Now, you have creepers coming in, and this is probably going to be, besides Intermission, your number one source of wiping. And this is Warlock, so he's going to port. He's waiting for the spike ball to pass. Yeah. So, you know, they're making a line here. Now, if you're killing the spike ball here, what are these guys going to do to live? You have to nuke the spike ball. You have to call main group to go through. And you go through. Now, again, this is the spiked mechanic is something that many raiders at every single level struggle at. And it almost comes down to a per player standpoint. So, you know, the higher rank in guild you'll have less players who struggle with it. In the lower rank you'll have more players who struggle with it. But you'll always have someone who struggles with it. And don't feel hesitant to swap someone out if they're struggling with it, because the mechanic is very unique. Now, the way to handle it, and, you know, I'm someone who died early to it a ton, and then very rarely died to it later, because I learned how to adapt, is basically you just want a full send. You want a full send as soon as the spikes hit their peak. So once they hit their peak, you just send it, and he's probably just going to send it. Send. Doesn't think, doesn't hesitate, doesn't be like, let me wait till they go away and then move. Nope, you see top, you go. You don't think. You don't overthink it. You just do it. And until people learn how to just do it, it's going to be a struggle. Now, you know, traps are going to go to the corner here. This is always the case until the very, very last set of traps. And what we're going to do here is we're going to blow up the traps, and then you're going to see a chains disengage call. All right? So the chains need to get out and then dodge. Now, this is very difficult. It's a very difficult fight for range. I'll talk about why here in P2 on, really. They're going to disengage, and then they need to cross and get in a line. So he's going to send. He's going to send. That was really risky, actually. That's not a good example. But they're going to get in that line. Now, we lost so many range to poor defensive usage, and healing could have been slightly improved. Now, we didn't use a DK, but a lot of guilds who use DKs now, AMZ, those 3 people out there. But you basically need perfect defensive usage early on to live this. So if I'm a range, like, this is not my POV, but, you know, like, first one in P2, I'm probably safe. Second one in P2, I want to exil before the tank hit. Not like, you always want to be top before the tank hit. The third one, I want to use survival of the fittest. And the fourth one, maybe I'll consider turtle. But I use turtle for some special things I really don't want to talk about. So as, like, your defensive usage needs to be pre-planned as range. You know, as a druid, I'm going to bear form everyone. I'm going to bark skin these. If I'm under 80% health, I'm health stoning. If, you know, you need to start thinking how you're going to handle it. If you just run out there and stand your marker, die, saw that you're 80% health, thinking, God, the healers suck, they should have healed me, that is your fault because the healers are progging as well. And you had your health stone, health pot, and defense available and you died, that's 1000% your fault. People who blame their healers usually are the worst players in your raid because they don't understand what's happening. Like maybe the healer had to spot heal someone else. Maybe someone else made a mistake and they ignored you. If you have anything up and you die, if you take any avoidable damage, if the healer saves you, you're being carried. If you save yourself, you are carrying. So as a DPS, put yourself in a position to carry, not be carried. It's my little rant about that. But a lot of lower guilds will blame their healers. And yes, healers are very hard to find really good ones. Most times they're average. But you need to put your healers in a chance to succeed. You cannot rely on them. They have so much to do. Like, their job is the hardest in the raid. At this level, I think tanking at the highest end is probably the hardest, but whatever. Anyway, we're nuking spike balls. And again, like, see, that's why I use turtle, right? That's me. So I'm going to turtle through and then turtle the spikes. Make it for easy. But, you know, people can port through. But again, we're nuking the spike ball. Main group's going through. Everyone seems to be able to get through on their own. And then full send. And we're good to go. Traps go in the corner. Tank out. Chains are getting ready to disengage, as you see here. Again, we use the off tank to do this. Chains are disengaging. Purple's probably just going to full send. He's going to full send. He's going to watch the tank. Notice how he's orange marker and he's purple marker, but they're swapped because they got here first. Again, he's going to check his HP. He's 100% before this goes off. He went to 85 and he almost died, so we really should have run survival, but, you know, that's very minor. But see, he literally went to 15% health. With more gear, this wouldn't be as much of a problem. And they're going to nuke the spike ball here, and they're going to get in a line. Good. Spike ball was actually deleted this time. So now look how much room he has. Like, the main group ran through, and he's got all day. If he had someone behind him, he'd be fine, too. And now here, like, again, you kind of just want to full send. You don't want to push during spikes or traps, but, like, we're waiting because we're waiting for healing cooldowns and DPS cooldowns. So, like, we're stop damage here, and we're going to wait for this tank thing, then cross it, then push. So, yep, we're going to cross. We're not going to be at the edges. We're going to push now. And we're waiting as long as possible. Now, making sure the gateway's focused. And again, I'll just talk about this again. We're going to try to stay stacked possible. I always know one's going to go in the mid. I look left. Don't see it left. Call left. If I don't, I go right. But now I'm going to always know this one's right. So this is right. Always try to shoot the gap backwards. Perfect. He did it right. You know, the left every time. Shoot the gap backwards. Like, this guy's fast, so we went through. We're waiting. We're very patient. This is blinks, but, you know, current live, it's probably mid or right. So he has to turtle it. And then this one's always going to be mid. And then, again, I look left. I don't see it left. I know it's right. So we go right. And it's always going to be bait and gate. So we're waiting. But, like, some guilds, again, if you don't have a warlock or you don't feel confident in this, you'd have to go left and then stack. But I don't advise that. So we go through. We stack up. Okay. Now, P3 is a little easier than P2 positioning-wise, but it's still not free. And you kind of need, like, the range especially need that, but, like, a very good concept of what they have to do, and we'll talk about that. So, the chains are going to disengage here, and we're looking for the spike balls. So, the idea is spike balls spawn, range run away, and want to stack over here in 3 lines. He'll get it the second time, so we'll talk about that. So, we'll talk about the main group first. Now, remember at the beginning of the video when I said 3 bops is really important? He grabs bop, and he's just going to run through the spike ball in that corner. Because we want his line to be here, right? Like, it'll make more sense, but we want his line to be here and over there. And the main group wants to come to close the spike ball. So the main group runs to the spike ball and nukes it. In P2, the range just stood still, turned around, and hit the spike ball. In P3, we want to run the spike ball. And I'll talk about that why later. So, we go through. The chains are going to come around. Here comes the tank mechanic. Send it. Send it. Send it. Traps are going to go back in this corner. And they're just waiting. They're spreading. Good. The off tank does it. The spike, the traps. And the tank mechanic is coming. And you also have spike balls coming. Chains are disengaging just like P2. We're going to talk about the other part. So now we're not in a rush to get in a line because the chains need to go to the opposite area of the spikes. Spikes spawn here, chains go here. And tank's going to grab a bop and go to this corner. So if you watch the tank, he's going to grab a bop and he's going to shoot over to that corner. Yep, there he goes. Now, this is the moment of truth for P3 and how a lot of guilds will really struggle in this phase. The main group's up on the spike ball. And the way the timings work is this gets tighter and tighter for the main group every time. The chain group needs to be in 3 separate lines away from the spike ball spawn because they're going to shoot lines out of them. So this is not safe, right? This line and back. It doesn't matter how you position. As long as there's one person in this row, one person in this row, and one person in this row. You can do a diagonal line. You can do this. We didn't have any requirement for that. We just said one person go back, assert your position there. The next person go in number 2, and the third person go in number 3. And you wait. You stand still. It goes off. See how this is here? We're here in the box. We're safe. The tank thing's here. And we're good to go. Goes through. He ports thin. He probably has some type of blink. And he's going to go here. He's going to go through. And he's going to look to dodge the spike. So, I would advise you sit down with your raid, but mostly your range, and drill it into their minds how this shift works in P3. Because if you don't shift, the spikes are just going to kill you in the main group consistently. And you'll probably, have to sit there and spend 10 minutes figuring out why, when you could just pre-plan it and say do you know what to do if you get spikes in P3. Anyway, spike traps go in the corner. This is the last traps that go in that corner. And chains are looking to disengage again, and we'll look at the main group again. This is the last combo and last spike ball. So again, chains are going to disengage. They're going to look to full send it, main group, go the spike ball, grab a bop, go through. Again, you have a bop, you have to blink one of these, and you have to make a judgment call which one's best. We nuke the spike ball. These chains, you can see it on the mini map, are disengaged. They're back here, by the way. They're behind. See this void torrent or whatever, the priest mind flay, I don't know what it is, but you see they're back there. I turtle through, that's me, but this guy's moving behind because he doesn't have anything. He goes through. You're going to get traps. This is the only traps that go mid. You go through. If you die this with traps, they just spawn randomly in the room. So if it spawns here, you actually just want to wait for the enrage to hit one of them. You spread them out. The off tank's going to want to tank the ones further away first. Grab spike. Obviously, no one hit a spike or a trap. That'd be very bad. Because you're in the middle of the room and you're breaking spikes, you're going to take a shit ton of damage, so you need to drop Devo Link or something like that. And that's it. That is the fight. And if you get further than that, you cross over and then you stack on the absolute middle one. After you kill all the spike. You want to kill 3 traps, let the tank mechanic kill the last one, at the raid crosses over, stacks, and that's it. So that's Painsmith. Very difficult fight. Again, we'll go back. We'll talk about, what classes are good. Paladins are nuts. You basically want to take every paladin on your roster, at least to get up to 3 bops. Every class has their strengths and weaknesses. You need to find a balance. If you need more add damage, Windwalker, Hunter, Warriors are nuts with Rally anyway. Single target spike ball blasters are going to be your rogues and your warlocks. In classes that have a lot of front end damage, hunters, like MM hunters. DHs. Um, there's probably another class I'm missing. I'm just telling you the ones that we used. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to want to take your best players 9 times out of 10 for this fight, because the amount of deaths you can limit in intermission and spike deaths in P2 and P3 is going to be critical. Other than that, that's everything I really have to say for Painsmith. You know, as I said, you probably want to 5-heal, look at other guilds, copy their CDs, and make sure that your DPS know what to do with their CDs as well. Like, a 2-minute user should probably use pull and first ads. 3-minute users should maybe, I don't know how the timing works anymore, but pull and boss is probably what it's going to be. So make sure your DPS know that and they aren't wasting anything, as well as your healers understand their requirements, and then really really hone down and teach the mechanics of the fight to your raiders. And then the next 2 bosses are pretty easy, so that is, it gets a little quicker once you get past this boss. Again, I will be probably releasing guides, or mostly walkthroughs, for the remaining bosses. So Guardian, Great Scribe, KT, Sylvanas. I know Sylvanas has already been asked a few questions about, so I'll try to get these guides out as soon as possible. But if you have any questions, you can always just comment in the YouTube video, or you can try to find me in game or Discord. Other than that, that's everything I have to say. So everyone have a good day and peace.